Every night after work, I bought food for a homeless woman outside the hospital. But one cold November night, she grabbed my wrist. "Don't go home your usual way tonight. Trust me. Your son," she said urgently. "Tomorrow morning I'll tell you everything." I hadn't spoken to my son in years, but something in her desperate eyes made me listen. The next morning she spoke 7 words that shattered my world. What she told me that morning changed everything. But first, drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. Knowing people around the world are hearing this gives me strength to continue. November in Chicago is unforgiving. That night, as I left Northwestern Memorial Hospital, the wind cut through my coat like a warning I didn't yet understand. I'd been on my feet for 12 hours straight. Emergency surgery, 3 critical patients, endless paperwork. At 61, these double shifts were getting harder. All I wanted was to get home, take a hot shower, and collapse into bed. The hospital doors hissed shut behind me, sealing off the fluorescent warmth. Outside, the November cold slapped me awake. My breath came out in clouds. I pulled my coat tighter and headed toward the parking garage. That's when I saw her. Beatrice. She sat on the concrete steps near the main entrance, same spot as always. An old coat wrapped around her thin frame, a paper cup beside her with a few coins inside. I'd been bringing her food for years now, not because I thought it made me a saint, just because it seemed like the right thing to do. Tonight, I had a protein bar in my pocket. "Evening, Beatrice." I said, fishing it out. She looked up. Her eyes caught mine, and something in them made me pause. Not gratitude, something urgent. "Doctor," she said. Her voice was low tight. Before I could react, her hand shot out and grabbed my wrist. Not hard enough to hurt, but firm. I froze. "Beatrice, what?" "Doctor, don't go home the usual way tonight." The words came fast, barely above a whisper. I blinked. "What do you mean, your son?" She leaned closer. "Please trust me. Take Lakeshore Drive. Go through downtown. Don't take your usual route through Lincoln Park. Not tonight." My son. The word hit me like a fist to the chest. Jordan? I hadn't heard anyone mention him in years. Not since he'd cut me off completely. And here was Beatrice, who I'd never told about my personal life, saying his name like it was a warning. "Beatrice, I don't understand. How do you—" "Tomorrow morning," she interrupted. Her eyes searched mine, pleading, "Come back tomorrow morning. I'll explain everything. But tonight, please, just do what I'm asking." I should have pressed her for answers, but something in her face stopped me. Fear, maybe, or certainty. I'd known Beatrice for years, long enough to know she wasn't the type to play games. She watched people, really watched them. If she said something was wrong, something was wrong. "All right," I heard myself say. "I'll take the long way." Her shoulders sagged with relief. She released my wrist. "Thank you, doctor." I pressed the protein bar into her hand. She took it, but her eyes never left mine. "Tomorrow morning," she repeated. "I'll be here." I nodded and turned toward the parking garage, my mind spinning. The drive home took twice as long. Lakeshore Drive at night city lights, reflecting off the black water of Lake Michigan. Normally I'd cut through Lincoln Park. 10 minutes easy. Tonight I went the long way, downtown, around. Extra 20 minutes I didn't have. But I did it. Because Beatrice had said, "Your son." My son, Jordan. I hadn't seen him in 5 years. 5 years of silence. 5 years of wondering if I'd ever hear his voice again. What did Beatrice know about Jordan that I didn't? I took the long way home that night, my hands gripping the steering wheel, tighter than necessary. Beatrice's words kept looping through my mind. Your son. The city slid past my windows. Traffic lights turned from red to green. Other cars drifted by, their headlights cutting through the dark. I barely saw any of it. My thoughts were 30 years away. 30 years ago, I was a different man. Younger. Broken in a way I didn't know how to fix. Caroline had been gone 6 months. Car accident on I-90. One moment she was there, the next, she wasn't. We'd never had children. She'd wanted to wait. "When things settle down," she'd always said. But things never settled, and then she was gone, and I was alone. I threw myself into work. 16-hour days. Anything to avoid going home to that empty house. It was a Tuesday morning when the call came through the hospital. A woman had given birth in the ER and disappeared. Just walked out, left the baby behind. No name, no note. Security footage showed her slipping out a side door and then nothing. They needed someone to sign off on the paperwork. I was the attending on call. I went down to see him. He was so small, wrapped in a hospital blanket, sleeping in a plastic bassinet under fluorescent lights. No family. No one coming for him. The state would take him, they said. Foster care. Maybe adoption if he was lucky. I stood there looking at him. This tiny person who'd been abandoned before his life even started, and something inside me cracked open. I held him, and the moment his weight settled into my arms, I knew. He was mine, not by blood, not by law, yet, but by choice. I named him Jordan. The memory hit me so hard I had to ease off the gas. A car honked behind me. I accelerated, blinking the blur from my eyes. I wasn't supposed to remember it this clearly. 30 years should have softened the edges, but I could still feel the weight of him, still see his tiny fingers curling around mine. Another memory surfaced. Jordan at 5 years old. We were in the kitchen. I was making pancakes, burning them, really. I'd never been good at cooking. Jordan sat at the table, coloring his tongue, sticking out in concentration the way kids do. I set a plate in front of him. Here you go, buddy. He looked up at me, syrup already on his chin somehow, and said it for the first time. Thanks, Daddy. Not Dr. Brennan, not Lawrence. Daddy, I'd had to turn away so he wouldn't see me cry. The word still lived in my chest like a scar that never quite healed. The traffic light ahead turned red. I stopped, resting my forehead against the steering wheel for just a moment. One more memory pushed through. Jordan at 18, high school graduation, cap and gown, that ridiculous smile on his face. He'd worked so hard. Straight A's, volunteer work at the hospital, acceptance letter from the pre-med program. I'd never been prouder. We stood outside the auditorium afterward, the summer sun beating down other families, milling around taking photos. Jordan held his diploma like it was made of gold. You're going to be a great doctor. Son, I told him. He looked at me with those eyes, my son's eyes, even if we didn't share blood, and said, I want to be like you, Dad. I want to be like you. The light turned green. Someone honked. I drove. Those words had meant everything to me. For 18 years, I'd tried to be someone worth looking up to. Tried to show him what it meant to care for people, to put others first, to do the right thing, even when it was hard. I want to be like you, Dad. That was 12 years ago. And for 10 of those years, everything had been good. Jordan in medical school calling me for advice, coming home for holidays. We were a family. Small, unconventional, but ours. And then something changed. Something broke. I pulled into my driveway. The house was dark. I sat in the car engine, ticking as it cooled, and stared at nothing. I hadn't spoken to Jordan in 5 years. 5 years of unanswered calls. 5 years of watching his birthday pass without hearing his voice. 5 years of wondering what I'd done wrong. And now Beatrice was warning me about him. The boy who'd called me Daddy. The young man who'd wanted to be like me. Somewhere along the way, he'd become someone I didn't recognize. What had my son become? The next morning, I returned to the hospital earlier than usual. I needed answers, and I needed them from Beatrice. She was already there, same spot on the steps. When she saw me, she stood. Tell me, I said. Tell me what you heard. She glanced around, then moved to a quieter corner, near the side entrance. 3 days ago, I was sitting in my usual spot, she began quietly. 2 men were talking on the phone near the parking lot. One of them I recognized him from a photo you showed me once. Your son. My chest tightened. He was talking about an accident. Your accident. He said, when it's done, the insurance pays out $5 million. Doctor, she hesitated, I think he's planning to hurt you. The words hit like a physical blow. No, I said automatically. Not Jordan. You're mistaken. I wish I were. I shook my head, but even as I denied it, a voice whispered, You haven't seen him in 5 years. You don't know who he is anymore, and I knew exactly when everything had changed. 10 years ago, Jordan was 20. Second year of medical school. Everything seemed fine. Then Christine Wallace found him, his biological mother. She showed up at his apartment and told him everything. Told him he was adopted, that I wasn't his real father, that she'd had no choice but to give him up, and that I had stolen him from her. All lies, but Jordan didn't know that. He came to my house that night. I'll never forget the look on his face when I opened the door. Rage, confusion, betrayal. Is it true? His voice shook. Am I adopted? I'd rehearsed this conversation 1,000 times, but standing there, looking at my son's face, every word vanished. Yes, I said. I found you at the hospital when you were born. Your mother left. I chose to raise you. You lied to me. His hands were fists. For 20 years. I didn't lie, Jordan. I just didn't know how to tell you. I was waiting. Waiting for what? His laugh was bitter. When were you going to tell me when I was 40? I should have told you sooner. I know that. But Jordan, listen. Who am I? The question came out raw. If you're not my father, who am I? You're my son, I said. You're my son. That's who you are. I'm not your son. The words echoed in my living room like a gunshot. I'm nobody, he continued, voice breaking. I'm some kid whose real mother didn't want him and whose fake father spent 20 years lying. Jordan, please. But he was already walking away. Don't follow me. Don't call me. I don't want to be you. You're not even my real father. A month later, he dropped out of medical school. I tried calling. He never answered. I tried visiting. He'd moved left, no forwarding address. 5 years ago, he blocked my number completely. That was the last real conversation we had, I told Beatrice quietly. She nodded. Hurt people, doctor. I stared at the hospital entrance, the same doors where I'd found him 30 years ago. A tiny baby no one wanted. And I'd loved him. God, I'd loved him so much. But somewhere along the way, love hadn't been enough. The boy who'd wanted to be like me had become a stranger. And now that stranger wanted me dead. I didn't want to believe it. But I couldn't ignore it. If there was even a small chance Beatrice was right, I had to act. By 9 that morning, I was sitting across from Detective Christopher Wade at District 18 Police Headquarters. His office was small, cluttered with case files and coffee-stained reports, but his eyes were sharp, focused. Dr. Brennan, he said, leaning forward, you said you needed to report a threat against yourself. I nodded. My hands were steadier than I expected. 3 days ago, a woman I know, Beatrice Malone, overheard my son Jordan talking on the phone near the hospital parking lot. He mentioned an accident, my accident, and a $5 million insurance payout. Wade's pen paused over his notepad. $5 million. That's my life insurance policy, I said quietly. Jordan is the sole beneficiary. He wrote that down. And you believe your son is planning to harm you. The word son felt heavy in my mouth. I don't know what to believe. But Beatrice was certain. She said he was planning something. Wade studied me for a moment. When was the last time you had contact with Jordan? 5 years ago, I said. We had a falling out. He cut me off completely until, I hesitated. 2 weeks ago, he called, said he wanted to reconnect, that he'd been thinking about me. Did you meet with him? No, I said. I told him I needed time to think about it. The truth is, I wasn't sure I was ready. We haven't spoken since. Wade leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. Dr. Brennan, if your son is planning something, that call wasn't about reconciliation. It was about lowering suspicion. If you suddenly died after 5 years of silence, people would ask questions. But if you'd been in contact, if he'd been trying to rebuild your relationship, he shook his head. It looks like an unfortunate tragedy, not a crime. The air left my lungs. Wade's voice softened. I'm not saying that's what's happening, but we need to take this seriously. What do I do? I asked. Change your routine, he said. Different routes to work, different times. Don't go anywhere alone if you can help it. And if Jordan contacts you again, let me know immediately. He handed me his card. I'll start digging into this today. Financial records, phone logs, any associates he's been in contact with. If there's a plan, we'll find it. I stood shaking his hand. Thank you, Detective. We'll figure this out, Wade said. I was halfway to the parking lot when my phone buzzed. A text from Jordan. Hey, Dad. I know it's been a while. How about dinner tomorrow night? My treat. Let's talk. I stared at the screen. My thumb hovered over the reply button. 2 weeks ago, he'd said he wanted to reconnect. Now he was asking me to dinner. Was this an olive branch or a trap? Detective Wade called me 2 days later. My team's been working around the clock, he said. His voice was grave. Doctor, you need to sit down. This is bigger than we thought. He arrived at my house in Lincoln Park just after 7 that evening. The folder he carried looked thin, but the weight of it seemed to press down on the table as he set it in front of me. I'm going to be direct with you, Wade said. We pulled Jordan's financial records. He owes $750,000 to a man named Eddie Moretti. I blinked. 750. Moretti's a loan shark, Wade continued. High-interest loans, mostly to gamblers. Dangerous guy. Jordan's deadline is 2 weeks from now. If he doesn't pay... Wade didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. I felt the room tilt slightly. That's why he needs the insurance money. $5 million, Wade said quietly. It solves all his problems. I couldn't speak. Wade flipped open the folder. 3 weeks ago, Jordan wired $50,000 to an offshore account. We traced it. The recipient is a man named Brandon Jacobs. Ex-con did time for assault. We believe Jordan hired him to stage an accident. The word accident landed like a punch. But there's more, Wade said. Someone at the hospital is helping him. I looked up sharply. What? Wade slid a printed report across the table. Our forensic digital team analyzed your medical records at Northwestern Memorial. Someone's been altering them over the past 4 weeks. I scanned the document. My hands went cold. Atrial fibrillation, diagnosed June 2019. Prescribed beta blockers, March 2020. History of arrhythmia monitored since 2018. None of it was true. They fabricated a heart condition, Wade said. If the accident happened, the police would pull your medical records. They'd see a history of heart problems. They'd conclude you had a heart attack while driving. Natural causes. No investigation. Fast insurance payout. I couldn't breathe. We traced the digital edits back to a login account. Wade continued. Dr. Preston Webb. The name hit me like a freight train. Preston. No, I whispered. Wade's expression softened, but his voice stayed steady. Dr. Webb also has gambling debts. He owes Eddie Moretti $200,000. Jordan promised him $500,000 to alter your records and sign off on the death certificate. I stared at the folder, at the fabricated diagnoses, at the name of my best friend for 20 years. My son, my best friend, both of them. How long have you known Preston? Wade asked gently. 20 years, I said. My voice felt distant. We did our residencies together. He was at my wedding. He was there the day I brought Jordan home from the hospital. Wade nodded slowly. I'm sorry. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to feel. For a long moment we just sat there in the dim light of my kitchen. The city hummed outside the window, distant sirens, the soft rush of traffic on Lakeshore Drive. Life continuing as if the world hadn't just collapsed. Wade stood gathering the folder. We're moving fast now. I'll have surveillance on you starting tonight. We'll get them, Dr. Brennan. All of them. I nodded numbly. Wade paused at the door, his hand on the knob. Then he turned back. There's one more thing, Doctor. Brandon Jacobs. He hasn't contacted Jordan in 3 days. We think he might be having second thoughts. We're trying to locate him right now. The door closed behind him. I sat alone in the silence, staring at the fabricated medical records on my kitchen table. Second thoughts, or something worse. Brandon Jacobs stared at the photo on his phone. The target, Dr. Lawrence Brennan, and suddenly he couldn't breathe. We found Brandon, Wade said the next morning. We were back in his office at District 18. Wade opened a file. 12 years ago, a man was brought into Northwestern Memorial. Serious car accident. Critical condition. You performed emergency surgery. 6 hours. You saved his life. I didn't remember. There had been so many emergencies over the years. That man was Brandon Jacobs, Wade said. I looked up sharply. He was 23. Ex-con on parole. You didn't know that. You just knew he was dying. Wade slid a printout across the desk. A hospital staff photo. My face. My name. Dr. Lawrence Brennan, Chief of Surgery. 3 weeks ago, Jordan hired Brandon to stage your accident. $50,000 up front. But Brandon didn't know who the target was until he started researching you. He recognized you immediately. He tried to back out. And Jordan? I asked. Wade pressed play on a small device. Jordan's voice crackled through the speaker, cold, ruthless. I have recordings of our conversations. Proof you accepted a contract killing. You're still on parole, Brandon. One call to your parole officer and you're back in prison for conspiracy to commit murder. Minimum 20 years. Finish the job, or I send the recordings to Detective Wade tomorrow. The recording stopped. Brandon couldn't kill you, Wade said, but he also couldn't go back to prison. So he found a third option. What option? He started watching the hospital. He saw you bring Beatrice food. Talk to her. 3 days ago, Brandon positioned himself and Jordan near the hospital entrance, close to where Beatrice sits. Jordan was on the phone loud talking about the plan, the payout. Brandon made sure they were within earshot. Jordan never noticed Beatrice was there, but she heard everything. My chest tightened. Brandon saved your life, Doctor, Wade said softly. Just like you saved his. I stared at the photo of Brandon Jacobs. A young man with a hard face and tired eyes. He saved my life, because I saved his. 12 years ago, I hadn't known who Brandon was. I'd just known he was a human being who needed help. And now that choice had come back to save me. Wade leaned forward. Brandon wants to help us. He's agreed to wear a wire. Tonight, Jordan is meeting him, and we're going to catch him in the act. I looked up. Brandon's risking everything to do this, Wade said. One wrong move and Jordan will know, but it's our best shot. Tonight. We end this tonight. The hardest part wasn't the waiting. It was the knowing. Knowing that my son was out there planning my death. That afternoon, Wade walked me through the plan at District 18. Brandon will wear a wire, he said. He's meeting Jordan tonight at 9. Jordan thinks it's a final update before the accident. We'll record everything. Once we have a confession, officers move in and arrest him. What if Jordan suspects something? I asked. Wade shook his head. Desperate people talk too much, Doctor, and Jordan is desperate. I nodded slowly. Wade slid another file across the desk. There's something else you need to know. We traced Jordan's communications over the past 2 months. He's been in contact with someone. He showed me a phone record. A name I hadn't seen in years. Christine Wallace, Jordan's biological mother. She reached out to him 2 months ago, Wade said, right when his debt hit its peak. Wade pulled up text messages. Christine's words were cold, calculated. You deserve that money. He stole you from me. Take back what's yours. I'll help you get what you're owed. He's not your real father. You owe him nothing. I stared at the messages, my stomach twisting. She's been poisoning him for 2 months, Wade said quietly. Feeding his anger, his resentment, telling him he deserves your life insurance money, that you took him from her. She abandoned him, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. She left him on a hospital bed 30 years ago and never looked back. Wade's expression darkened. She doesn't care about Jordan, Doctor. She just wants the money. We believe she convinced Jordan to list her as a secondary beneficiary on the insurance claim. My chest tightened. She was using him. All this time I thought Jordan's hatred came from learning the truth. But Christine had taken that pain and twisted it into something lethal. We'll arrest her too, Wade said. Conspiracy accessory to attempted murder. She's not walking away from this. That evening I sat alone in my house in Lincoln Park. The walls felt too close, the silence too loud. I looked at the photos on the mantel. Jordan as a baby swaddled in a hospital blanket. Jordan at 5, missing his front teeth, grinning at the camera. Jordan at 18, cap and gown, his arm around my shoulder. Where did I go wrong? Should I have told him sooner? Or had Christine planted seeds I could never pull out? I thought about tomorrow, about facing him, about looking into the eyes of the boy I raised and seeing a stranger. My phone rang. Wade. It's happening, Doctor. Brandon just made contact. Jordan agreed to meet. Tonight at 9 o'clock. I gripped the phone. Should I be there? No, Wade said firmly. Too dangerous. We'll arrest him and then you can talk to him. I nodded even though he couldn't see me. Dr. Wade said, his voice softer. I know this is hard, but we're doing the right thing. I know, I said, but it didn't feel right. It felt like the end of everything. That night I didn't sleep. I sat in the darkness waiting for Wade's call, waiting to hear that my son had been arrested, waiting for the moment when everything became real. The clock ticked. The city hummed beyond the window, and somewhere out there Brandon and Jordan were meeting. Tonight, it all ends, one way or another. The call came at 9:47 p.m. Wade's voice was steady, but I could hear the tension. We got him, Doctor. Jordan's in custody, along with Dr. Webb. Do you want to see him? I drove to District 18 in a daze. Wade met me at the entrance. Brandon wore the wire. We got everything on tape. Jordan confessed, said once the old man was gone, he'd have $5 million. Webb would sign off on a heart attack. No investigation. We passed an interrogation room. Through the window, I saw Preston Webb sitting with his head in his hands. He looked up as I walked by. "Lawrence," he said through the glass. "I'm sorry. I didn't have a choice." I didn't stop. I just kept walking. Wade stopped outside another room. "Jordan's in here. You sure about this?" I looked through the one-way glass. Jordan sat at a metal table, hands cuffed. His face was hard, defiant. "I have to," I said. Jordan looked up as I entered. For a moment, something flickered across his face, but it vanished quickly, replaced by anger. "So you know," he said flatly. "Good. You lied to me my entire life. You're not even my real father." I sat down across from him. My hands were shaking, but my voice was steady. "I know I lied," I said. "I should have told you sooner." "You're not even my real father." Jordan's voice cracked. "Why should I care what happens to you?" I looked at him, really looked at him. "I know I'm not your biological father, Jordan," I said quietly. "I've always known that." Jordan froze. "From the moment I held you, I knew you weren't mine by blood. I found you abandoned, just hours old. Your mother left. She didn't want you. But I chose you." Jordan's eyes widened. "I didn't have to," I continued. "But I looked at you and I saw my son. For 30 years, I loved you. Not because I had to. Not because of blood. But because you were mine." My voice broke. "I never lied about loving you, Jordan. That was always true." Jordan's face crumpled. The anger dissolved. He stared at me, and I saw the realization wash over him. Dad knew. He always knew. And he still chose me, and I chose hate. Jordan's voice was barely a whisper. "I didn't know." "I know you didn't, son," I said. Jordan's head dropped. His shoulders shook. And then the sobs came, deep, wrenching sobs. "What have I done?" he choked out. "Dad, what have I done?" I reached across the table. I took his cuffed hands in mine. "I don't know if I can forgive this, Jordan," I said, my own tears falling now. "But I still love you." Jordan looked up at me. His eyes were red, filled with grief. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry." They took him away a few minutes later. As the officers led him out, he looked back at me one last time, and in his eyes I saw the boy I'd raised, the boy who used to call me Dad, the boy I'd lost, and maybe, just maybe, the boy I might someday forgive. The arrest made the news. "Doctor's son arrested in murder-for-hire plot." But the headlines didn't tell the real story. They never do. Wade called me 3 days later. "Christine Wallace was arrested yesterday. Conspiracy accessory to attempted murder. When they arrested her, she showed no remorse. She said he was weak, useless, just like his father." I closed my eyes. Jordan had been manipulated by the one person who should have protected him. To Christine, he was just a tool, a means to money. "Dr. Webb is charged with conspiracy and falsifying medical records," Wade continued. "He'll lose his license, face years in prison." I felt betrayed, but I also felt pity. Preston had been weak. Greed and fear had made him betray 20 years of friendship. "Eddie Moretti," I asked. "We're building a case. Loan sharking extortion. Moretti's not walking away from this." "Brandon Jacobs is cooperating fully," Wade said. "The prosecutor's offering him a deal. Reduced charges, possibly probation." A few days later, I met Brandon at District 18. He stood when I entered, hands shoved in his pockets. "Doctor," he said, "I'm sorry." "You didn't go through with it," I said. "You saved my life." Brandon shook his head. "You saved mine first. 12 years ago. I never forgot that." "What will you do now?" "Try to be better," Brandon said quietly. "The way you taught me to." A small moment of redemption in the wreckage. I went back to work at Northwestern Memorial. My colleagues knew what had happened, but they didn't ask questions. They offered quiet support, a hand on the shoulder, a knowing nod. I moved through my days on autopilot, operating, consulting, saving lives, but my mind was elsewhere. I thought about Jordan sitting in a cell awaiting trial. I thought about the boy who used to sit on my shoulders, the teenager who'd wanted to be just like me. Could I forgive him? I didn't know, but I knew I couldn't stop loving him. Love doesn't work that way. It doesn't turn off just because someone hurts you, even when they try to kill you. A week after the arrest, I got a call from Jordan's public defender. "Your son wants to see you," she said. I stood at my office window looking out over Chicago, cold, gray, unforgiving. "Tell him," I paused. Tell him I need time. She said she would. But there was one more person I needed to see. One more person I owed everything to. Beatrice. I found Beatrice at her usual spot the next evening. The same steps. The same paper cup. As if nothing had changed. But everything had changed. I sat down beside her with a hot meal, not leftovers, and a warm coat. Beatrice, I never properly thanked you. You saved my life. She looked at me, her weathered face calm. I just did what was right, Doctor. You've been kind to me for years. Kindness deserves kindness. You had the courage to speak up. Many people wouldn't. I've seen a lot. Good people. Bad people. You're one of the good ones. The world needs good people. I'm not sure Jordan would agree. Her expression softened. Your son is hurt. Hurt people hurt people. But he can still be saved. I looked toward the entrance where I'd found Jordan 30 years ago, a tiny baby abandoned and alone. Family isn't just blood, I said. It's choice. It's commitment. It's loving someone even when they're broken. I chose Jordan 30 years ago, and even now I can't undo that choice. Beatrice listened quietly. Maybe that's what unconditional love means. It doesn't mean accepting everything. It doesn't mean there are no consequences. It means the love is still there even when trust is shattered, even when forgiveness seems impossible. I paused. I don't know if Jordan and I will ever have a relationship again. The damage might be too deep, but I'll always be his father, not by blood, by choice. Beatrice smiled gently. That's the truest kind of father, Doctor. I stood helping her to her feet. What will you do now, Beatrice? Same as always. Sit here. Watch people. Hope for kindness. I shook my head. I'm going to help you get proper housing and identification papers. You deserve better than these steps. Her eyes shimmered. You've already given me so much. No. This time let me give back. As I walked away, I looked back. Beatrice waved. I waved back. Life is fragile. Trust is precious. And real love, is the hardest thing we ever do. But it's worth it. Even when it breaks your heart. Especially then. I chose Jordan 30 years ago. He chose hate. But maybe someday he'll choose differently. And I'll be waiting. Looking back on everything I see, how my silence almost destroyed us both. I thought keeping Jordan's adoption secret would protect him, but it gave others the power to poison his heart. If you're a parent, don't make my mistake. Don't let fear keep you from hard conversations. The truth may hurt, but lies hurt worse. Here's what God taught me through this nightmare. Family isn't about blood. It's about choosing to love someone every single day, even when they break your heart. The Bible says love never fails, and I finally understand what that means. It doesn't mean love prevents pain. It means love survives it. I chose Jordan 30 years ago in that hospital room, and by God's grace, I still choose him today. That's the kind of father I want to be. Not perfect, but faithful. Not without hurt, but without giving up. These grandpa stories we share aren't just entertainment. They're true stories from real people who've walked through fire and lived to tell about it. This channel exists because I believe our true stories can help you avoid the mistakes we made. Every grandpa story here carries lessons bought with tears. So I ask you, have you ever had to forgive the unforgivable? Have you loved someone who hurt you deeply? Share your story in the comments. Your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And if this true story touched you, please subscribe and share it with someone who needs hope. God bless you, and thank you for listening.